The millionaire arrived 2 hours early. He wanted to surprise her, but when he opened that door, the world stopped. He saw the wine falling, slow, dark, staining his mother's blue dress. He heard the laughs. He saw her hands, those hands that raised him, shaking in the air, not knowing where to rest. And in Rosa's eyes he recognized something he should never have seen. Shame. The woman he loved had just broken the woman who gave him life. But in that moment, something was born in him. Not hate, something stronger, clarity. Like this if it touched your soul. It is more than a click. It is a silent hug between those of us who know what hurts. Comment how you think this story will end. And if you haven't subscribed yet, it costs you nothing, but for us it means a lot. Thanks for being here. The Grand Hotel New York shone like a jewel in the heart of the city. Rosa Mendez stopped in front of the service entrance, feeling the weight of the light blue dress against her skin. It was the best she had, bought in a shop in Brooklyn with the money she had saved for 3 months. The seams were not perfect, but they were made with dignity. She dried her wet palms against her skirt and took a deep breath. The November air felt cold in her lungs, but not as cold as the fear she had inside since Adrian had told her, "Mom, it's my wedding. You have to be there." It had not been an invitation. It had been a plea disguised as an order. Inside the main hall, the white flowers multiplied like impossible promises. Imported orchids, greenhouse roses, jasmines that smelled like money. The crystal lights hung from the ceiling like tears frozen in time. The round tables, covered in ivory silk, waited for 300 guests who had never known hunger. Rosa walked slowly, barely touching the floor with her worn-out shoes. Each step was a silent apology for being there. A young woman dressed in a perfect black suit approached with a tablet in her hand. Her name was Marina, and she managed the event with the precision of a doctor. "Mom, can I help you?" The question sounded polite, but her eyes were already checking, calculating, classifying. "I am Rosa Mendez." Her voice came out lower than she wanted. "The mother of the groom." Marina blinked twice. Then she checked the tablet as if looking for an error in the system. "Oh, right. Sorry, I didn't recognize you." She forced a smile. "The ceremony is at 7. You can sit over there." She pointed to a corner, far from the altar, near the emergency exit. Rosa nodded. She was used to corners. She had spent 20 years cleaning what others got dirty. Offices at night, stairs in the morning, bathrooms of companies where the bosses did not look into the eyes of the person washing the floor. She had raised Adrian with cracked hands and a bent back, without a husband, without help, with no weapon other than the will that her son would not repeat her story. And she had done it. Adrian was now the CEO of Mendez Tech, a software company worth hundreds of millions. Business magazines called him the new genius of American technology. But to Rosa, he was still the boy who did his homework under the light of a candle when the electricity was cut off. She was looking at a flower arrangement when she heard the sound of heels against the marble. They were not steps, they were sentences. Veronica de Almeida Costa appeared like a vision from another world. Fitting dress in champagne color, blonde hair pulled back in a perfect bun, lips painted the exact color of ambition. She was tall, thin, and walked as if the floor should thank her for the contact. She stopped 3 meters from Rosa. She looked at her from top to bottom with a studied slowness. Her blue eyes were cold like the ice of a lake in winter. "Who let this woman in here?" The question floated in the air like toxic smoke. Rosa raised her head slowly. She knew that look. She had seen it in bosses who gave her orders without saying please, in supervisors who checked her work, looking for invisible mistakes. "I am the mother of the groom," she answered, with the voice she used to not bother anyone. English with an accent of the neighborhood, of the street, of truth without polish. Veronica let out a short, elegant, practiced laugh. "Right." She took a step closer. "Adrian told me about you. The lady who... How was it? Oh yes, the one who cleaned." The word came out wrapped in silk, but the edge was there, sharp and precise. Rosa felt the hit in her stomach, but she did not move back. Listen well. Veronica lowered her tone like someone sharing a secret. This is my family's wedding. The de Almeida Costas don't do events. They make history. Today everything must be perfect. She paused. You are going to stay in a corner, quiet, without mixing with the guests. I don't want uncomfortable questions. I don't want stories. The words fell like stones in quiet water. Rosa swallowed the humiliation like she had swallowed many others, without protesting, without shouting. She just nodded, like someone accepting an extra shift, one more order, another day of invisibility. Veronica turned her back and walked away, leaving behind a trail of expensive perfume and cheap hate. Rosa was left alone in the middle of the empty hall. The crystal lights reflected her small figure, blurred, almost non-existent. She thought of Adrian as a child, telling her, "Mum, when I grow up, I'm going to buy you a princess dress." She looked at her light blue dress, simple, honest, and she knew that for some, it would never be enough. 2 hours before the ceremony, the hotel was busy with activity. Photographers adjusted lights, waiters lined up glasses, florists fixed petals with tools. Everything was controlled movement, designed beauty, bought perfection. Rosa had hidden near a pillar, trying to take up the least space possible. From there she watched the ballet of preparation, recognizing in every move the same work she had done for decades, making others shine. A flower arrangement on the main table began to lean, unbalanced by the weight of the orchids. Rosa saw it before anyone else. Her instinct, sharp from years of preventing others' disasters, made her move without thinking. She walked fast and held the glass vase before it fell. Carefully she straightened it, adjusting the flowers to distribute the weight better. Her hands, rough and precise, worked in seconds. "What on earth do you think you are doing?" Veronica's voice sounded like a whip. Rosa let go of the vase as if it burned. She turned around and found the bride surrounded by 4 women, her bridesmaids, dressed in light colors and identical smiles. They were young, beautiful, and had that particular cruelty of someone who has never needed anything. Veronica moved forward and pulled the vase from Rosa's hands, holding it as if it were evidence of a crime. "I hired the best florist in New York." Her voice shook with calculated anger. "I paid a fortune for every detail. And you think you can put your hands in there and touch it?" One of the bridesmaids, a brunette with thick lips named Patricia, covered her mouth, pretending to be surprised. "Oh, Veronica, they just don't understand. They think they can touch anything." She looked at Rosa with fake pity. "It's the habit, I guess." The others laughed softly like cruel birds. Rosa took a step back. Heat rose to her face, not from shame, but from held-in anger. But the anger of the humble is silent, because shouting costs the job, the food, the roof. "I only wanted to stop it from falling," Rosa said, with a firm voice but without raising it. Veronica put the vase on the table with a hard hit. She came closer, invading Rosa's personal space, forcing her to look up. "Do you know what the problem is?" Veronica tilted her head like a disappointed teacher. "Adrian has worked so hard to become someone he is still not quite yet." She paused, tasting every word. "And you come here and remind everyone where he came from." The silence that followed was heavy like lead. One of the bridesmaids, blonde with commercial teeth, added with a voice of poisoned honey, "It's uncomfortable, you know. For us too. We want Adrian to fit in, but with this..." She pointed vaguely at Rosa. "It's hard." Rosa squeezed her fists against her skirt. Her nails dug into her palms. She breathed through her nose, counting to 10 as she had done 1,000 times in other people's houses when the ladies blamed her for things she had not broken. Veronica came even closer until Rosa could smell her French perfume. "He doesn't talk about you at home." The voice was soft now, almost pitying. "Do you know why?" Rosa did not answer. "Shame." Veronica said the word slowly, enjoying it. "He brought you because he had to not look cruel. But between us," she lowered her voice like someone sharing a painful secret, "you understand that there are things that don't match certain last names." Each word was a needle. Rosa felt her eyes burn. Tears wanted to come up, but she pushed them down, to that place in her chest where she kept all the humiliations she could not afford to feel. She would not cry, not there, not in front of them. Veronica took a step back, satisfied. She took a glass of red wine from a nearby tasting table. She held it with elegance, watching the red liquid spin inside the glass. It was not a sudden move. It was planned, artistic, cruel. "Since you have so much experience cleaning," Veronica smiled, "let's see if you are still good for something." And then, with a slow, almost ritual movement, she tipped the glass. The wine fell like a dark waterfall. First a drop, then a string, then a thick and warm river. It touched Rosa's chest and spread like blood in water. The stain opened through the light blue fabric, soaking up the color, turning the cloth into a map of humiliation. The liquid went down her chest, slipped between the seams, reached the waist, soaked the skirt. Thick drops fell to the white marble floor, forming a small dark puddle. The smell of grapes rose like a slap. Rosa froze. Her body did not know how to react. Her hands floated in the air without a destination, without knowing where to rest, without being able to fix what was already done. The dress, her best dress, the only one she had for a day like this, was ruined. The bridesmaids exploded in laughter. They were not loud laughs, they were held in elegant giggles, the kind allowed in circles where cruelty is disguised as humor. "My God!" Patricia put her hand to her chest. "They just don't learn." Another added with barely hidden disgust, "This is why they don't mix. They don't know how to act." Veronica held the empty glass toward Rosa, like someone offering a tool. "Clean yourself up." It was an order, not a suggestion. "And do it fast. You are not going to ruin the pictures looking like that." Rosa looked down at her own body. The stain spread from her chest to her stomach, dark, impossible to fix. The fabric stuck to her skin, cold and heavy. That was the best dress she had been able to buy, the best she had managed to get after 20 years of work. And now, in front of women who had never had to choose between paying for light or eating, it was nothing more than a stained rag. Her throat closed. Tears pressed from inside, but they stayed stuck, because crying there meant giving them exactly what they wanted. She took short breaths, shaking inside, still on the outside. And then, from the hall door, came a voice that cut the air like dry thunder. "What the hell is going on here?" Adrian Mendez entered 2 hours before planned. He had wanted to surprise Veronica with his early arrival, but he stopped suddenly when he saw the scene. His eyes went over the whole picture. The wine on the floor, the empty glass in Veronica's hand, his mother's soaked dress, and in Rosa's posture, shrunk inside, standing tall on the outside. He recognized immediately the woman who had always said, "It was nothing to not make things worse." Veronica turned with a smile that tried to be bright, but stopped halfway. "Adrian, love, you arrived early." Her voice shook slightly. "Your mother had a small accident." "Accident?" The word came out of Adrian's mouth like ice. He walked straight toward Rosa and took off his jacket without thinking, covering her shoulders as if he wanted to hide her from the world or hide the world from her. His hands shook, not from nerves, but from held-in rage. "Mom," he held her chin gently. "Look at me. What did she do to you?" Rosa opened her mouth. The automatic phrase, trained for years, came up like a reflex. It was nothing. But when she looked at her son, she saw the boy she hugged at night when he was scared, the teenager who studied under candles, the man she had helped build without ever asking for anything in return. And something inside her, small, tired but alive, refused to lie. "She told me to clean myself up," she said. "Only that. The naked truth, without decorations." Veronica reached for Adrian's arm, fast, possessive. "You are overreacting." "It was a joke, I just—" He pushed her hand away like someone pushing away trash. "You threw wine on my mother." He did not raise his voice. That was worse. "You humiliated her, here, today." She was touching the flowers, putting her hands where she shouldn't. She was stopping an arrangement from falling. Adrian looked at the bridesmaids one by one, and they all looked down. And even if she hadn't, nothing gives you that right. Veronica turned pale. 300 guests, the press. My father... The wedding is cancelled. The hall ran out of air. Veronica stepped back as if she had been hit. You can't... I can. Adrian took a step forward, his eyes shining with anger and clarity. I will pay every cent that is necessary, but I am not going to join my life to someone who treats my mother as if she were less than human. He took Rosa's hand firmly, like someone rescuing a person from the edge of a cliff. At the exit, he stopped and looked at Veronica one last time. Do you know what the difference is between you and her? He pointed slightly to Rosa, still covered by the jacket. You have a last name, she has dignity, and I prefer to carry her origin than live the empty life you are offering me. Rosa said nothing. She only squeezed her son's hand, and for the first time that night she did not feel small in the middle of luxury. She felt complete. Adrian's apartment was in the Upper East Side, one of the most exclusive neighborhoods in New York. Floor-to-ceiling windows, designer furniture, modern art on the walls. Everything was white, grey, minimal. A space designed to impress, not to live in. Rosa sat on the Italian leather sofa, with Adrian's jacket still over her shoulders. The wine stain had dried, leaving the fabric stiff and dark against her skin. She felt dirty, out of place, like a wrong note in a perfect song. Adrian came out of his room with clean clothes for her, a white linen shirt and dark pants. Too big, but decent. Change, Mom. Please. His voice sounded tired. Rosa took the clothes without saying anything and locked herself in the bathroom. It was the size of her living room and kitchen together. White marble, gold faucets, towels so soft they felt like clouds. She looked in the mirror and did not quite recognize the woman looking back. She was 58 years old, but the wrinkles around her eyes told 70. Her hands, cracked by bleach and chemicals, shook slightly. Her hair, grey and pulled back in a simple bun, had lost its shine decades ago. She took off the blue dress slowly, like someone digging up a body. She held it in front of her. The stain had taken the center, like a wound that would never close. She folded it carefully and left it on the sink. Then she put on Adrian's clothes, washed her face with cold water and came out. Her son was standing by the window, looking at the lit city. The lights of New York shone like fallen stars. From there, everything looked beautiful, orderly, fair. But Rosa knew the city had another face, the one of dark streets where she had walked at dawn to get to her first shift, the one of crowded buses where no one gave up their seat, the one of shops where guards followed her with their eyes, as if her poverty were contagious. I'm sorry, Mum. Adrian spoke without turning. I never should have put you through that. Rosa sat back on the sofa. It's not your fault. Yes, it is. He turned, and his eyes were red. I knew how Veronica was. I knew how her family was. But I wanted to believe that if I changed enough, if I built something big enough, they would see you the way I see you. And how do you see me? Rosa asked with a soft voice. Adrian walked toward her and knelt in front of the sofa, like when he was a child and wanted to speak seriously. As the strongest woman I know. His words shook. As the one who taught me that work has dignity. That being tired is not weakness. That being humble does not mean being less. Rosa touched his face with her rough hands. Then don't forget where you come from. Never, Mom, never. They stayed like that for a moment in silence, while the city kept shining outside, ignoring their pain. The next day, the news exploded. High society scandal. CEO cancels wedding last minute. Adrian Mendez breaks up with heiress de Almeida Costa hours before ceremony. 300 guests left waiting, the wedding that never was. The media jumped on the story like birds on trash. Photographers waited in front of Adrian's building. Reporters called his assistants asking for statements. Social media was full of guesses. Veronica, on her part, wasted no time. She gave an exclusive interview to a society magazine, posing in an elegant black dress with perfectly timed tears and a carefully built story. It was devastating, she said, her voice breaking at the right moments. I discovered things about Adrian that made me rethink everything. His temper, his inability to handle stress. He cancelled everything over a silly misunderstanding. The interviewer, a middle-aged man with a silk tie, tilted his head with practiced pity. "Can you tell us what happened exactly?" Veronica sighed, drying a fake tear. His mother, a lovely woman really, had a small accident with a wine glass. I offered to help her, but Adrian took it all wrong. He started shouting, accusing me of horrible things. It was violent, emotionally violent. The lie was so polished that it shone. On another channel, Veronica's father, Gonzalo de Almeida Costa, a real estate mogul and man with contacts in every corner of power, also spoke. "It's a shame," he said in a deep voice, sitting in his office of wood and glass. "We opened the doors of our family to that young man. We accepted him despite his origin, and this is how he pays us." The word origin floated in the air like poison. The comments on the internet were split. Some defended Veronica. Others suspected there was more to the story, but no one yet knew the full truth. Adrian did not answer any calls. He did not give interviews. He stayed in his apartment with Rosa, working from home, ignoring the media circus. But inside, something was changing. One night, while they ate in silence, Rosa put her fork down on the plate. "Adrian," he looked up, "you have to let me go." "What?" "To my house, to my life." Rosa spoke calmly but firmly. "You can't hide because of me. You have a company. You have responsibilities." "Mum, I'm not going to leave you." "You aren't leaving me." She smiled sadly. "You are protecting me. But I don't need protection. I need you to live your life without fear that I am a burden." Adrian shook his head. "You have never been a burden." "But they think you are." Rosa pointed vaguely toward the outside world. "And as long as you stay locked in here, you are proving them right." Adrian squeezed his fists. "I don't care what they think." "You should." Rosa leaned forward. "Because if you don't go out and tell the truth, her lie will stay. And I don't want my son to carry a shame that doesn't belong to him." Adrian looked at her for a long time. In her eyes he saw the same strength that had pulled him forward when there was no money for books, when hunger hit, when everything looked impossible. "What do you want me to do?" he asked. Rosa took his hand over the table. Something she would never expect. "What?" "Tell the truth. But not with anger." Rosa squeezed his fingers. "With dignity." 3 days after the scandal, Adrian called a press conference. Not in a luxury hotel or in the Mendez Tech offices. He called it in a community center in Brooklyn, the neighborhood where he had grown up. The place was humble, brick walls, folding chairs, an old projector, but it was full. Reporters, cameras, microphones, everyone wanted Adrian's side. He entered, dressed in a simple dark grey suit without a tie. Rosa was at his side in a new dress he had bought her, navy blue, simple, dignified. Adrian approached the microphone. The noise in the room died down. "Thank you for coming." His voice sounded clear, without shaking. "I know there are many versions of what happened. Today I am going to tell the true one." The cameras focused. The reporters raised their recorders. 3 days ago, I cancelled my wedding." He paused. "Not because of a misunderstanding, not because of a fit of temper. I did it because my fiancé humiliated my mother in front of witnesses, threw wine on her on purpose, and demanded she clean herself up, as if she were part of the service." A sound of surprise went through the room. Adrian continued, with a firmer voice. "My mother, Rosa Mendez, worked 20 years as a cleaning lady. With those hands she built my future. She gave me education, values, and a chance she never had. When Veronica de Almeida treated her like trash, she didn't just insult my mother. She insulted every person who works honestly in this country." Rosa, sitting behind him, kept her head high. Some cameras turned toward her. She did not shrink. "Today, I want to announce something." Adrian took a deep breath. "I am creating the Mother Rosa Foundation, dedicated to giving full scholarships to sons and daughters of domestic workers, cleaning staff, and employees in vulnerable situations. I want no child to have to choose between studying or eating. I want no mother to have to lower her head for earning a living with dignity." The silence was total. Mendez Tech will donate 10% of its yearly profits to this foundation, and I, personally, will give the amount I was going to spend on the wedding, $500,000. A reporter raised their hand. Do you have proof of what you say about Veronica de Almeida? Adrian nodded. There are witnesses, hotel staff, and my mother. Another reporter asked, why wait 3 days to speak? Because I wanted to do it right. Adrian looked straight at the camera. I don't want revenge. I want justice. And justice doesn't shout. It builds. The room exploded with questions, but Adrian raised his hand. One last thing. His voice softened. To everyone who grew up feeling shame of their parents because they worked humble jobs, there is nothing humble about honest work. The true humiliation is treating badly those who serve you, thank you. He stepped down from the stage and hugged Rosa. The cameras caught the moment, and that image, a son hugging his mother with pride, went viral in minutes. A few hours after the conference, social media exploded. Not with hate toward Adrian, but with huge support. Mother Rosa became a worldwide trend. Thousands of people shared their own stories. Children of domestic workers, gardeners, janitors, invisible workers. All with the same message. My mother pulled me forward with dignity. A famous American actress, daughter of a nanny, posted a video crying, my mother cleaned bathrooms so I could go to theater classes. I was never ashamed. I never will be. A chef with a Michelin star wrote, my father was a dishwasher all his life. He taught me more about excellence than any school. Thank you, Adrian, for saying what many of us needed to hear. Even politicians, business people, and public figures joined in. The story had touched a deep nerve in American society, but not everyone reacted with support. Gonzalo de Almeida Costa, Veronica's father, called his lawyers. In a private meeting in his mansion, he hit the table with his fist. That boy has humiliated us publicly. I want lawsuits, for defamation, for moral damage, for everything. His main lawyer, a bold and careful man named German Ruiz, shook his head. Mr. de Almeida, if we sue, we make his version look real. We need witnesses to say the opposite. Is there anyone from the hotel who can speak for us? Gonzalo frowned. Veronica's bridesmaids were there. Are they willing to lie under oath? German raised an eyebrow. Because if there is a trial, everything will be investigated. Security cameras, staff stories. If Mendez's version is true... It's not, shouted Veronica, sitting on the sofa with her arms crossed. He is overreacting to everything. It was an accident. German looked at her with the patience of someone who has seen too many lies. Miss, are there cameras in that hall? Veronica turned pale. I don't know. Then I suggest we put the lawsuits aside. German closed his bag. And that we work on fixing the family's image. Gonzalo sat back in his leather chair. For the first time in years, he felt out of control. Meanwhile, in Adrian's apartment, Rosa read the messages on the phone her son had given her. She had never had social media. She had never understood that hashtag thing. But now, seeing thousands of people telling stories like hers, she felt something she didn't expect. She was not alone. A tear fell on the screen. Adrian sat next to her. Are you okay? Rosa nodded, drying her eyes. I never thought that my life mattered. It has always mattered, Mom. Adrian put his arm around her shoulders. The world just needed to see it. A week later, something unexpected happened. Marina, the event manager at the Grand Hotel New York, posted a statement on her LinkedIn profile. It was short, but devastating. I worked at the cancelled wedding of Veronica de Almeida and Adrian Mendez. I saw what happened. I saw how they treated Mrs. Rosa Mendez. I saw the wine glass. I saw the humiliation. Adrian Mendez told the truth. As a professional in the industry, I cannot stay silent when people try to rewrite history. Mother Rosa. The post was shared 50,000 times in 24 hours. Then the florist spoke. 2 young women who had worked that night posted a joint video. We were preparing the hall when we saw everything, one said with a nervous but firm voice. Mrs. Rosa only wanted to help. She didn't deserve that, the other added, and the bridesmaids were laughing, as if it were a show. The hotel waiters also started to speak, in anonymous forums first, then with real names. They all agreed Veronica de Almeida had humiliated Rosa Mendez on purpose. One of them, an older man named Esteban, who had spent 30 years serving at elite events, was particularly strong. "I have seen everything in this job, drunk people, fights, family dramas. But what I saw that day was pure cruelty. That woman looked at Mrs. Rosa as if she were trash, and she threw the wine on her with a smile. I was 3 meters away. I saw it all." Veronica tried to fight back. She posted a statement saying those stories were made up and bought by Adrian. But no one believed her. Public opinion had completely turned. The de Almeidas, used to controlling the story with money and contacts, discovered that in the age of social media, the truth could travel faster than their lies. One night, Rosa received a call from an unknown number. She hesitated before answering. "Hello? Mrs. Mendez?" The voice was female, young, shaking. "My name is Patricia. I was one of Veronica's bridesmaids." Rosa tensed up. She remembered that girl, the brunette who had covered her mouth pretending to be surprised. "What do you want?" Patricia took a deep breath. "To call and apologize. What we did, what I allowed, was horrible. I laughed. I stayed quiet, and I haven't been able to sleep well since then." Rosa said nothing. "I know an apology doesn't erase anything, but I needed you to know that I also grew up with a mother who worked cleaning houses, and that day I betrayed her. I betrayed her and you." Patricia's voice broke. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that there are people who realize how wrong we were." Rosa closed her eyes. She could feel the real pain in that woman's voice. And although the wound was still fresh, something in her, the part that had forgiven so many things in life, softened. "Thank you for calling," Rosa said, with a soft voice. "And talk to your mother. Tell her you love her before it's too late." She hung up. Adrian, who had listened from the kitchen, came closer. "Are you okay?" Rosa nodded. "I think so." The Mother Rosa Foundation became official a month later. Adrian rented a space in the same Brooklyn neighborhood where he had grown up. It was not luxury, but it was real. Clean offices, new computers, a small but committed team. Rosa insisted on being involved. "I don't want it to be just my name," she said. "I want to work." Adrian smiled. "What do you want to do?" "Interview the candidates." Rosa crossed her arms. "I want to see the children. I want to meet the mothers. I want to know that the money gets to those who really need it." And so she did. Every week, Rosa sat in a small office and talked to families, tired mothers who worked 3 shifts, fathers who balanced impossible schedules, bright children who dreamed of being doctors, engineers, teachers, but had no money for books. Rosa listened to them with infinite patience, and when she approved a scholarship, she did it looking them in the eyes. "You are going to work hard," she told them. "Not because I ask you to, but because your mother deserves it." Many cried. The first group of students were 20, all children of cleaning workers, gardeners, or domestic staff. The foundation covered tuition, books, transport, and a small monthly help so families didn't have to choose between school and food. The award ceremony was held in the same community center where Adrian had given the press conference. The media covered the event, but this time the tone was different. It was not scandal. It was hope. A 14-year-old girl named Lucia went up on stage to receive her certificate. Her mother, a cleaning lady in a hospital, cried in the front row. Rosa handed her the envelope personally. "Thank you, Mrs. Rosa," Lucia said, her voice shaking. "My mom always told me that clean work is honest work, but no one looked at us. Until now." Rosa hugged her. "Now the world is looking at you. Show them what you are made of." The cameras caught the moment. And that night, the picture of Rosa hugging Lucia was on the front page of several national newspapers. The headline of the New York Times said, "The Mother Who Cleaned the Way, Rosa Mendez and the Revolution of Dignity." Gonzalo de Almeida, reading the newspaper in his mansion, threw it against the wall. The de Almeida Costas had always controlled their reputation with an iron hand. Strategic donations, dinners with politicians, presents at charity galas. everything calculated to keep the image of a respectable family. But Veronica's scandal had opened a crack, and cracks, when ignored, become deep holes. Companies that used to compete to partner with the de Almeidas began to pull away. Luxury brands cancelled sponsorship contracts. Invitations to exclusive events stopped coming. A major bank, in which Gonzalo was a main owner, received a letter signed by hundreds of cleaning staff demanding he be removed from the family. The letter said, "We cannot work for an institution that supports the mistreatment of people like us. If the bank does not act, we will look for work elsewhere, and we will tell why we left." The threat of a massive loss of staff forced the board to act. Gonzalo was invited to quit his position. Veronica, for her part, tried to rebuild her image. She posted photos doing volunteer work in a soup kitchen, but social media users were not kind. "Posing for photos doesn't erase what you did," someone wrote. "True volunteering doesn't need a photographer," another commented. Her followers on Instagram fell from 2 million to 800,000 in a month. Fashion brands that had sponsored her cut the contracts. Her influence, built on a base of privilege and appearance, fell apart. One night, Veronica called Adrian. He hesitated before answering. "What do you want?" "To talk." Her voice sounded broken. "Please." "We have nothing to talk about." "Adrian, please," Veronica sobbed. "I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I don't know what happened to me that day. I was stressed, nervous. I said horrible things. I did worse things, but I swear that—" "You swear what?" Adrian cut in. "That you didn't want to humiliate my mother. That the wine fell by itself. That the laughs of your friends were a misunderstanding." Silence on the other side. "Veronica, what you did was not a mistake. It was cruelty." His voice was firm, but not angry. And cruelty is not fixed with a phone call. "What do you want me to do?" Veronica almost shouted. "Kneel? Beg? I lost everything, Adrian. My reputation, my contracts, my friends, everything. My mother lost her dignity for a moment. You lost privileges you never earned." Adrian took a deep breath. "It's not the same." "So what? Will you hate me forever?" "I don't hate you." And it was true. Adrian didn't feel hate. He felt disappointment, sadness for what could have been and never would be. "But I don't forgive you either. Forgiveness is earned, Veronica, and you haven't even started." He hung up. Rosa, who had listened from the sofa, came closer. "Are you okay?" Adrian nodded. "Better than I thought. One day she will understand," Rosa said, with that wisdom that only time gives. "Or not. But that is not our burden." 2 months after the foundation of Mother Rosa, an investigative reporter named Elena Vargas published a deep report on the working conditions of domestic workers in the United States. The article, titled "The Invisibles, the Other Face of American Luxury," showed cases of systematic abuse, pay below minimum, days without rest, and firing without reason. Elena interviewed dozens of women. Many told stories similar to Rosa's: daily humiliations, insults disguised as jokes, degrading treatment. Some had been fired without pay. Others had suffered harassment. Almost all had stayed silent for fear of losing their jobs. The report mentioned Rosa Mendez as a symbol of silent resistance. "She did not rise with shouts or lawsuits," Elena wrote. "She rose with dignity. And that dignity woke up a country that had made injustice normal." The article started a national debate. Politicians were pressured to change labor laws. Unions organized marches. And most importantly, thousands of workers started to speak. A movement called Miss No One More was created, inspired by Rosa's case. It was not just about domestic workers. It was about all people who worked in the shadows: cleaning staff, caregivers, gardeners, janitors, all the voices that society had silenced. Rosa was invited to speak at an event organized by the movement. At first she said no. "I'm not good at speeches," she told Adrian. "You don't need to be," he answered. "Just tell the truth." The event was held in Times Square. Thousands of people gathered. Many carried signs with photos of their mothers, their grandmothers, their aunts. women who had worked all their lives without recognition. When Rosa went up on stage, the silence was total. She looked at the crowd. She saw faces like hers, hands like hers, stories like hers. "I don't know how to speak pretty," she started with a shaking voice. "I didn't go to college, I don't have degrees, I only have this." She raised her hands, showing the scars, the rough skin, the marks of bleach and chemicals. "Hands that cleaned so my son could eat. Hands that worked in silence because I thought that was what I should do." She paused. Someone in the crowd shouted, "We love you, Rosa." She smiled shyly. "When that woman threw the wine on me, she didn't just stain my dress. She stained something I had carried all my life, the idea that I didn't matter, that my work had no value, that I should be thankful just for being there." Her voice became stronger. "But my son taught me something that day. He taught me that no work is humble if it's done with dignity, that no person deserves to be treated like trash, and that silence is not peace, it's fear." The crowd exploded in applause. "So I say to all the women who are here, to all who clean, care, serve, your work matters, you matter, and no one ever has the right to make you feel less." The applause became a roar. People shouted her name. Rosa, overwhelmed, put her hands to her chest and cried. But this time they were not tears of shame, they were tears of freedom. Adrian, in the crowd, recorded everything with his phone. Not for social media, for him. To remember the moment his mother stopped asking for permission to exist. The Grand Hotel New York, where everything had started, faced its own crisis. After the scandal, several clients had cancelled events. The reputation of the place, built over decades of service to the elite, shook. The hotel manager, an elegant man named Rafael Ibanez, made a risky decision. He called a meeting with all the cleaning, kitchen and service staff. In 30 years of managing, he had never done it. "I want you to know," he said, standing in front of more than 100 employees, "that what happened in this hotel was unacceptable. Not just for Mrs. Mendez, for all of you." The employees looked at each other, surprised. "I have checked our policies. I have talked to human resources, and I have discovered things that shame me." Raphael looked down. "Unfair pay, abusive shifts, lack of systematic respect. That ends today." He announced a series of changes: a 20% pay raise, mandatory breaks, dignified contracts, and a direct line to report abuses from clients. "And one more thing," he added. "We are going to put a plaque in the event hall, with a phrase I hope we always remember: true elegance is measured by how we treat those who serve us." The staff exploded in applause. An older employee named Carmen raised her hand. "Is this for public relations or because we really matter?" Raphael looked at her directly. "If it were just for image, I would have hired a marketing agency. This is because I realized I managed this hotel looking up and never looking down, and that was a mistake." Carmen nodded with tears in her eyes. Days later, the hotel invited Rosa to a private event. She arrived with Adrian, nervous, not knowing what to expect. Raphael met them in person. "Mrs. Mendez, I came to apologize on behalf of this institution. What happened here should never have happened, and I am deeply sorry that our space was the stage for your pain." Rosa didn't expect that. "You didn't throw the wine on me." "No, but I allowed a culture where that was possible." Raphael held out a hand. "May I show you something?" He took them to the event hall, now empty. On the main wall, newly installed, a bronze plaque shone. Rosa read out loud, "True elegance is measured by how we treat those who serve us, in honor of all the people who work in the shadows so others may shine." Below, in smaller letters, Rosa Mendez, November 2025. Rosa put her hand to her mouth. "You didn't have to do this." "Yes, we did," said Raphael, "because if we don't remember, we repeat." Adrian put his hand on his mother's shoulder. "What do you think, Mum?" Rosa touched the plaque with her fingers. Cold, solid, permanent. "I think that my name had never been on a wall like this." "Now it is," said Raphael, "and I hope it stays here longer than any event we do." While Rosa gained recognition, the de Almeida Costas kept falling apart. Gonzalo, forced to sell stocks and properties to cover debts and restore his image, saw his empire get smaller every day. Businesses he had built for decades slipped through his hands. His wife, Catalina, a cold and distant woman who had always prioritized appearances, asked for a divorce. "I didn't marry you to be part of a scandal," she told him. "I married the last name, and the last name is no longer worth what it was." Veronica, socially isolated, tried to reinvent herself. She posted a video on YouTube titled "My Truth." In it, she cried, apologized, talked about youthful mistakes and bad influences. But the comments were heartless. "Crying doesn't erase what you did. Where were these tears when you humiliated Rosa? This is acting, not regret." The video had more dislikes than likes. Veronica deleted it after a few hours. One afternoon, desperate, she went to Adrian's apartment. The doorman stopped her. "I'm sorry, miss, Mr. Mendez left clear instructions." "I just want to talk for 5 minutes," Veronica begged. "Please." The doorman shook his head. "I can't." Veronica stood there in the street, looking up at the windows of the floor where she had imagined living, where she had planned a life of luxury and status. Now even the entrance was forbidden to her. She cried there, on the sidewalk, without cameras, without an audience, only with her shame. A passerby recognized her. "That's Veronica de Almeida," they whispered to their companion. They walked away fast, as if misfortune were contagious. Veronica then understood something she had never considered. The people who had surrounded her all her life did not love her. They loved her last name, her money, her influence. Now that all that was gone, she was alone. She returned to the family mansion, which no longer felt like home. Her father barely spoke to her. Her mother was gone. The employees looked at her with a mix of pity and barely hidden satisfaction. That night, Gonzalo entered Veronica's room. "We need to talk." "I don't want to hear more scolding," she said without looking at him. "I didn't come to scold, I came to tell you the truth." Gonzalo sat on the edge of the bed. "I built this empire stepping on people like Rosa Mendez. I did it without thinking twice. I believed success justified the methods." Veronica looked at him surprised. It was the first time her father admitted something like that. "But you—" Gonzalo shook his head. "You didn't do it for success. You did it out of cruelty. And that is worse. Dad, don't interrupt me." His voice was hard. "I was ambitious, ruthless maybe, but I never humiliated anyone for pleasure. I never threw wine on a woman just to laugh. That evil is yours." Veronica felt the words like stabs. "If you want to save yourself," Gonzalo continued, "it won't be with crying videos or fake posts. It will be with facts, with years of facts, and even then, it might never be enough." He stood up and walked toward the door. "The de Almeida name no longer protects you, Veronica. Now it's just you, and you will have to decide who you want to be." He closed the door behind him. Veronica was left alone in the dark, facing for the first time in her life the real consequences of her actions. 6 months after the creation of the Mother Rosa Foundation, the first scholarship students began to show extraordinary results. Lucia, the 14-year-old girl, won a national math contest. Carlos, son of a gardener, published an essay on social inequality that was read in Congress. Sophia, daughter of an elderly caregiver, got an extra scholarship to study medicine at Columbia University. Every success was celebrated by the foundation as a collective win. Rosa insisted on attending every graduation, every event, every important moment. "I want them to know they are not alone," she said. One morning, she received an unexpected letter. It came from a women's prison on the outskirts of the city. The sender was a woman named Anna, serving time for robbery. "Dear Mrs. Rosa, I don't know you personally, but I have followed your story from here. I was also a domestic worker. I worked in houses where they treated me worse than dogs. I felt so small, so invisible, that one day I decided if I was going to be treated like a criminal, I would at least take something worth the trouble. I stole, and I was caught. Now I am here, paying for my mistake. But when I read about you, about how you faced that woman not with violence but with dignity, I understood something. I was not invisible. They had just made me believe I was. When I get out of here, I want to work honestly. I want my daughter to see me like you, a woman who doesn't give up. Thank you for reminding me that I am human." Rosa read the letter 3 times, with tears falling on the paper. Adrian found her crying in the kitchen. "What happened?" She showed him the letter. Adrian read it in silence. "Can you do something for her?" Rosa asked. "When she gets out?" Adrian nodded. "We will give her a job at the foundation, and we will help with her daughter's education." Rosa hugged him hard. "Thank you, son. Don't thank me, this is the right thing to do." That same week, the foundation announced a new program, Support for Children of Incarcerated People. The news started a controversy. "Are you going to give scholarships to children of criminals?" someone protested on social media. Adrian's response was direct and public. Children do not inherit the mistakes of their parents. They inherit poverty, lack of opportunity, and stigma. We break that cycle. If that bothers you, the problem is yours, not ours. The comment went viral. And although there were criticisms, the support was huge. Rosa, meanwhile, stayed the same. She lived in a modest apartment Adrian had bought her in Brooklyn, near where she had raised her son. She refused to move to a nicer neighborhood. "My roots are here," she told him, "and roots aren't moved without the tree suffering." Every morning she walked the same streets as always. She said hello to Mr. Miguel at the newsstand, to Carmen at the bakery, to the kids running to school. They treated her with real affection, not for being famous, but for being one of them, for never having forgotten where she came from. One day, an older woman stopped her in the street. "Rosa, do you remember me? We worked together in an office building 15 years ago." Rosa looked at her and smiled. "Clara." "Of course I remember." Clara hugged her. "I want you to know that what you did, what you keep doing, gave all of us a voice. Now when I go to work, I hold my head high, because I know that what I do matters." Rosa squeezed her hands. "It always mattered, Clara. We just needed someone to say it out loud." A year after the incident at the Grand Hotel, New York, Rosa was invited to give a talk at NYU, one of the most prestigious institutions in the country. The same university where the children of families like the De Almeidas studied, where the future business leaders of America were trained. Adrian drove her there. As they drove through the streets toward the campus, Rosa looked out the window in silence, with her hands joined on her lap. "Are you nervous?" Adrian asked, looking at her. "A little," Rosa admitted. "I never thought I would speak in front of college students, people with studies, with a future. What can I tell them?" Adrian stopped the car at a light and took his mother's hand. "Mom, they have degrees. You have life. And life teaches what no book can." Rosa squeezed his fingers. "I hope I don't let them down." "Impossible," Adrian smiled. "You just have to be you." The auditorium was completely full. More than 400 business, law, administration, and economics students occupied every seat. Young people with a guaranteed future, important last names, bank accounts that had never known a zero balance. In the front rows, some professors and the dean of the faculty. When Rosa entered through the side aisle with Adrian, a curious silence fell. Some students recognized her from the news. Others just saw an older woman, simple-looking, walking with short steps toward the stage. She wore her navy blue dress, the same one Adrian had bought her after the incident. Simple, clean, dignified. There was no jewelry, no fancy makeup, just Rosa. She went up on stage slowly, holding the railing. The lights hit her face, and for a moment she couldn't see past the first rows. She felt the weight of hundreds of eyes on her. The dean introduced her with kind words, briefly telling her story. When he finished, the auditorium clapped politely. Rosa approached the microphone. She took a deep breath. She started without notes, without a script, with a shaking but clear voice. "I am Rosa Mendez. I cleaned offices for 20 years. She paused. "I washed floors, cleaned bathrooms, emptied trash. I washed windows so high I had to climb ladders that creaked under my feet. I worked night shifts in buildings where you, or your parents, worked during the day." The auditorium was in total silence. "Some of your parents probably saw me do it. Maybe they passed by me in a hallway. Maybe they left spilled coffee on their desk and I cleaned it without them knowing. Rosa looked up. But I doubt they remember me. Because for many of you I was invisible. The word stayed hanging in the air. Invisible, she repeated slowly. Not because I wasn't there, but because it's easier not to see the person who reminds you that someone has to clean what you get dirty, that someone has to work while you sleep, that someone gives up their own rest so you have comfort. An uncomfortable sound went through the auditorium. Rosa continued, invisible, until someone decided to make me visible in the worst way possible, throwing wine on me in front of witnesses to prove they could, to remind me of my place, to laugh so her friends could laugh too. She stopped, letting the words settle like stones in water. But what that woman didn't understand, what many people don't understand, is that dignity is not stained with wine. It is not bought with money. It is not inherited with last names. Rosa looked over the auditorium. Dignity is built with every decision we make about how we treat others, especially those who cannot defend themselves, especially those who depend on us. A student in the 5th row raised his hand shyly. He was a thin young man with glasses, looking nervous. Mrs. Mendez, how did you not feel hate? If someone did that to me, I would want to destroy them. Rosa smiled sadly. Oh, I felt rage. I felt a rage so big it burned inside me. I felt shame. I wanted to disappear, to never have gone to that place. I wanted to shout at that woman everything I kept quiet for years. She paused. But hate is like drinking poison, waiting for the other person to die. It consumes you. It turns you into what you hate. And I wasn't going to give her that power over me. I wasn't going to let her cruelty steal the only thing no one can take from you, who you decide to be. Another student, a young woman with dark hair in the 2nd row, raised her hand. Did you forgive Veronica de Almeida? Rosa took a deep breath before answering. I haven't spoken to her since that day. I don't know if I ever will. Forgiveness. Forgiveness is not something you give like a gift. It is something you build, step by step. The young woman pushed. But would you forgive her if she really asked you? Rosa thought about that. Forgiving doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean saying nothing happened. It means letting go of the weight of what they did to you so you can keep walking. She looked at the student directly. I let go of that weight, not so she would feel better, but so I could breathe, so my son wouldn't carry my bitterness, to be able to wake up without feeling that stain on my chest. A young man in the 3rd row, dressed in a brand shirt and expensive watch, stood up. His voice shook. My mother is a domestic worker. The auditorium turned toward him. Some classmates looked at him surprised. And I was ashamed to say it. His voice broke. My friends talk about their parents who are businessmen, lawyers, doctors, architects. And I lied. I said my mom worked in administration. I said she was busy when they asked me why she didn't go to parent meetings. Tears ran down his cheeks. But after listening to you, after seeing everything that happened, after reading about the foundation, I called my mom. He dried his eyes with the back of his hand. And I asked for her forgiveness. I asked for forgiveness for being ashamed of her, and I thanked her. I thanked her for every dish she washed, every floor she cleaned, every time she came home tired but asked me how school had gone. Rosa stepped down from the stage. She walked down the aisle toward him with shining eyes. The whole auditorium stood up. When she reached the young man, she hugged him. He broke down in her arms, sobbing like a child. Don't ever be ashamed again, Rosa whispered to him, loud enough for the microphone to catch it. She gave you what no last name could give you, real love, real sacrifice, a future built with her own hands. The applause was deafening. Rosa returned to the stage with wet cheeks. Look, she said, pointing vaguely to the auditorium, you are going to be bosses. You're going to lead companies. You're going to have power over other people. You are going to hire. You're going to fire. You're going to decide pay and schedules. Her voice became firmer. And when you do, I want you to remember this. The person who cleans your office has a name, has a family, has dreams, has dignity, and deserves to be treated as what they are, a human being working honestly. She pointed toward the young man still standing. Like his mother, like me, like millions of people in this country who build the world you live in comfortably. The silence was total. I don't ask for pity. I ask for respect. I don't ask for charity. I ask for justice, dignified pay, human schedules, decent treatment. Rosa joined her hands. Because the day you need help, when you are sick, when you are old, when you cannot take care of yourselves, someone like me will care for you. And that day you will want them to treat you with the same dignity you denied to others. At the end of the talk, when the auditorium emptied, the dean approached with an idea. Mrs. Mendez, we want to offer you an honorary position, not to give formal classes, but to come when you can and share your experience with our students, especially with those in business and administration schools. Rosa blinked, surprised. Me? But I don't have a university degree. I barely finished high school. You have something worth more, the dean answered with an honest smile. You have life wisdom, and that, Mrs. Mendez, is not learned in books. It is lived. Rosa looked at Adrian, who was nodding with pride. I accept, she said finally, on one condition. What is it? That you also invite other working mothers. That it is not just my voice, that it is the voice of all of us. The dean shook her hand. Deal. 4 months later, a letter arrived at the foundation. It was written by hand on simple paper without a fancy letterhead. Rosa opened it one morning while having coffee in the small office she used twice a week. Dear Mrs. Rosa, I don't know if you will remember my name. I am Veronica de Almeida Costa, the woman who threw wine on you more than a year ago. I am not writing expecting an answer. I am not writing expecting forgiveness. I am writing because I need you to know something. Since that day, I have tried many ways to apologize. I posted videos, I wrote public letters, I made donations. It all felt empty, because deep down, I was still trying to clean my image, not my conscience. 6 months ago, I started working as a volunteer in a soup kitchen in the Bronx. I didn't tell anyone, I didn't post photos, I just went. And every Tuesday and Thursday, I serve food, wash dishes, clean tables. I met a woman there. Her name is Mercedes. She is 60 years old and has worked cleaning houses all her life. She reminded me of you. The way she talks about her son, the way she is proud of having raised him alone, the way she never complains despite having hands ruined by bleach. One day she recognized me. She said, "You are the one who did that to Rosa Mendez." I thought she was going to shout at me, that she was going to kick me out, but she just looked at me and said, "I hope you learned." And the truth is, I am learning, slowly. Painfully, but learning. I learned that work does not define the value of a person, but how we treat the person who works for us does define who we are. I learned that the shame I felt when the whole world pointed at me is a tiny bit of the shame you must have felt that day, and that my shame was earned. Yours was not. I learned that the biggest luxury is not having money, but having peace. And I don't have peace. I probably won't have it for a long time. Maybe never. I don't expect you to forgive me, Mrs. Rosa. I don't think I deserve it. But I do hope one day to be a different person from who I was. A person that Mercedes doesn't have to forgive because I would never hurt her. Your dignity taught me more than all my expensive education. Thank you for not becoming what I was to you. With respect, Veronica. Rosa read the letter twice. She left it on the desk and looked out the window toward the streets of Brooklyn. Adrian entered the office with papers under his arm. He saw the letter. He saw his mother's face. What's up? Rosa passed him the letter. Adrian read it in silence. What do you think? He asked when he finished. Rosa was quiet for a long time. I think that maybe, just maybe, she understood something. Do you forgive her? Rosa looked at her son with those eyes that had seen so much, endured so much, loved so much. Forgiveness is not a switch you turn on, Adrian. It is a path. She started to walk. We will see where she gets. Are you going to answer her? Rosa shook her head. Not yet. When it's the right time, I will know. But for now it is enough to know that something changed, that what happened was not for nothing. 3 years after the incident, the Mother Rosa Foundation had transformed hundreds of lives. 522 scholarships given. Lucia, the first scholarship girl, had entered university with top honors to study aerospace engineering. Carlos had published his first book on social inequality, which was used as a text in several universities. Sophia started her medical residency in the same hospital where her mother had cleaned floors for 20 years, but now as a resident doctor. Anna, the woman who had written from prison, was released. The foundation gave her a job in administration, and her daughter received a full scholarship. 2 years later, Anna led the foundation's social reintegration program. The Grand Hotel New York became a model for fair treatment of employees. Other hotels copied its policies. The plaque in honor of Rosa kept shining in the main hall. Rosa kept living in Brooklyn, in the modest apartment Adrian had bought her. She refused every attempt by her son to move her to a more appropriate place. "My roots are here," she told him, "and roots aren't moved without the tree suffering." Every morning she walked the same streets as always. She said hello to Mr. Miguel at the newsstand, to Carmen at the bakery, to the kids running to school. They treated her with real affection, not for being famous, but for being one of them, for never having forgotten where she came from. One spring afternoon, Rosa was watering the plants on her small balcony when the doorbell rang. She opened the door and found a young woman, thin, with her hair in a simple ponytail. It took her a few seconds to recognize her. Veronica de Almeida was standing in front of her door. She wore no makeup, she wore no designer clothes, just jeans and a white shirt. And in her eyes there was something Rosa had not seen that day at the hotel: real humility. "Mrs. Rosa," Veronica said with a shaking voice, "I know I have no right to be here. I know I should have asked permission before coming, but I have been working in the soup kitchen for almost 2 years, and today Mercedes told me that if I really wanted to change, I had to face what I did, face to face." Rosa stayed at the door without inviting her in, but without closing it either. Veronica took a deep breath. "I didn't come to ask for forgiveness. I came to tell you that what I did was the worst thing I have done in my life, and that every day I work to be someone who would never do anything like that again." Tears started to fall down her cheeks. "And that thanks to you I understood that dignity is not bought, it is earned, and I lost it that day, and maybe I will never fully get it back, but at least now I know what it is." Rosa looked at her for a long time. She saw in that young woman not the cruel person she had been, but someone who was, slowly, becoming someone different. "Come in," she said finally. Veronica blinked, surprised. "Really? Come in. I'm going to make coffee." They sat in the small living room. Rosa served coffee in mismatched cups she had bought at a street market. "Mercedes told me about you," Rosa said. "She told me you work hard, that you don't complain, that you have learned to see people." Veronica nodded, her hands shaking around the cup. "She treats me better than I deserve." "Maybe," said Rosa, "or maybe she sees in you what I am starting to see, someone who is trying." Veronica cried in silence. Rosa did not hug her. She did not say, "It's okay," because it wasn't okay. It still hurt. The stain on the light blue dress was still kept in a drawer, as a reminder. But when Veronica left an hour later, something had changed in the air. It was not full forgiveness. It was the start of something, a crack in the wall of resentment, a possibility. In an interview for an international documentary about her life, recorded in her Brooklyn apartment, they asked Rosa, "If you could go back to that day at the hotel, what would you do differently?" Rosa thought about that with her hands joined on her lap. "Nothing," she answered finally, "because that horrible day taught me something that no good day had ever taught me, that my dignity did not depend on how I was treated, but on how I chose to respond." The interviewer pushed. "But it hurt. It still hurts." "Yes," Rosa admitted, "but the pain made me strong. It made me visible. It gave me a voice. And with that voice, I could help other people who felt invisible like me." She looked straight at the camera. If there is something I want the world to remember, it is this. Never let anyone make you feel small for being who you are, because the size of a person is not measured by their bank account or their last name. It is measured by the way they treat someone who can give them nothing in return. She paused, her eyes shining. True poverty is not in empty pockets. It is in hearts that do not know how to honor the person who works for them, in souls that confuse power with the right to humiliate, in lives that shine on the outside but are empty on the inside. She leaned forward with a quiet intensity, and to all the mothers, fathers, sons, and daughters who work in silence, your work matters. You matter. And no one, ever, has the right to make you feel less. The camera turned off, but the lesson stayed in thousands of hearts. Rosa Mendez never cleaned offices again. But she cleaned something much more important. She cleaned the conscience of a society that had made cruelty toward the invisible normal, and that no wine stain could ever erase.